think inflation's largely been wrung out of the economy, right? Price of eggs. I think the price of energy is coming down, and it's going to stay down. And I think, obviously very, very good for the economy.
Well, how do you think about tariffs impacting potentially inflation?
So I think tariffs, where they ultimately get resolved, will increase the cost of some, by a percent of some products. But it's not like inflation that will compound. It's more like a one-time reset, and then we won't have meaningful inflation from there. And I think that's a backdrop in which the Federal Reserve, toward the end of the year, could start. You could have a few kind of rate cuts.
He says, I think tariffs, where they ultimately get resolved, will increase the cost of some by a percent of some products, but it's not like inflation that will compound. It's a guy who was really hostile to tariffs at one point. What does he mean by this, by the way? You know how certain goods, all goods, basically, your breadbasket of goods, every time you went to the grocery store, every quarter, you went to Ralph's, you went to Albertsons, Stater Brothers, wherever, all of a sudden, every month, the same things that you bought got more and more expensive under Biden. It just kept snowballing. Tariffs, to the extent that they trickle down to the customer, is a one-time hit. And then, of course, there is a market adjustment that has the same, and Ackman doesn't get into this, there is the same pressure, downward pressure on price that is on inflation when you have you're in a contracting economy, when the pain of the government spending that isn't happening anymore goes away, right? That pulls everything down. Let me explain this in plain English. A company can't just charge whatever the hell they want for a product. I mean, they can, they're free to. I believe that's how the economy ought to work, right? You have the freedom to set your price. Anything other than that is communism, price controls. But if you set the price of a product too high, nobody buys the product and you go out of business. Pricing in a capitalist economy is one of the most interesting things, and it's entirely driven by consumer psychology. That's what it is. And consumers are, they're still spending, but they're spending carefully, because after 4 years of Joe Biden, they are out of cash. They're out of credit. They're cooked. And this is a problem. But it's one that will begin to work itself out, because conversely, right, one thing that tariffs promise to do is revitalize the economy, the workers' economy in the U.S., the working class, blue-collar economy. Those people need money. When they have money, they will spend money. When they spend money, they will buy goods and services here in the U.S. that in turn will be able to sell more of their product. And companies on Main Street and even Wall Street will, over time, make more and more money.